Hey everyone, this is Dongle, and welcome to the Ultimate Dark Souls Randomizer Guide. If you're looking to add a fresh twist to your Dark Souls experience, a randomizer is the perfect way to do it. This guide will walk you through everything you need to know to get started, from installing the randomizer to mastering the chaos it brings to Lortran. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or a newcomer to the series, this guide will help you navigate the unpredictable world of Dark Souls with confidence and skill. Prepare to die, and have a lot of fun along the way. Alright, first things first, you need a copy of Dark Souls Remastered. The mod should also work with the Prepare to Die edition. The steps might be a little bit different, but Dark Souls Remastered is the most easily accessible version of Dark Souls, and therefore the mod works best with it. Once you have your copy of Dark Souls Remastered installed, I would recommend launching it one time just to make sure it's installed correctly and you know that your game works. After that, you'll go down to your web browser and look up Dark Souls Item Randomizer and Enemy Randomizer. These will both be on Nexus Mods and Community. So once you're here, you will need to either log in or create an account on Nexus. I already have these mods installed on my computer, so I don't need to log in and download them. But for you, all you need to do is hit manual download for both of these mods. Once you hit manual download, it'll come over here to the right corner of your screen in the download section. And then once it's finished downloading, we can finally get to starting to set up the mod. Alright, so now you have the mods downloaded. You will have two compressed files show up in your downloads tab, the item randomizer and the enemy randomizer. Now what you need to do is extract the files within the compressed file using either 7-zip or WinRAR. I use 7-zip because I think it's easier and it just allows you to click on them. So for the item randomizer, all you have to do is copy and then find your Dark Souls directory. So you can do it going by Steam, Steam Apps, Common, Dark Souls Remastered, and then you will paste into the Dark Souls directory. You'll do the same thing for the item or the enemy randomizer, but you also need to make sure that you copy and paste the enemy randomizer data into the directory. This will be important later. Alright, now we have the mods in our directory. So first, I'm going to teach you how to use the item randomizer, and after that, I will show you how to do the enemy randomizer. So for the item randomizer, you're going to run the executable file, and this screen will pop up. You can read this. This just gives you a description of what will be changed. And you get to choose between your game edition. So Remastered and Prepare to Die edition. We have the remastered version, so we're going to choose Remastered. So, difficulty. This just changes where items are placed. Fair means that items can be placed anywhere in the world. Unfair, there's a select pool where items can be placed, and they are not placed in plain view. Very unfair is heavily biased and makes the game much harder. And you have to really search to find the key items in the game. So, key placement. So things like the basement key or key to the depths, key to Blighttown, key to New Londo Ruins, things like that. You can choose if you want them to be shuffled or not shuffled. So if they're not shuffled, they will just be where they are normally in the game, which isn't as fun in my opinion. So I always use shuffled. Now there's also race mode and race mode plus. Race mode just gives it a certain pool where key items can be, so that runs are shorter and that you can race your friends. I haven't really used race mode, and I've done randomizer races with my friends, and we've always just used the shuffle. So do some experimenting, figure out what works for you, and then make your choice off of that. Next on our list are soul items. So, soul items, the poppable souls, are shuffled into the item pool like others. This one makes it to where lesser soul items are replaced with a random consumable before shuffling. And this one means that boss souls have a 75% chance to be transposed to one of their boss items. So this is just means that when you kill a boss, that normal items can appear, lesser soul items are replaced with the consumable, or boss souls have a chance to drop a boss item. Okay. As for starting items, it will be on shield and 1/2-hand weapon by default. This just dictates what your class will get when you start the game. This one will always give you a shield and a weapon that you can either one-hand or two-hand. You choose this item, or not item, this option, it will always give you a shield and a weapon that you can wield one-handed no matter what. As for our final option, shield/weapon and weapon means that it can give you either a shield and a weapon or a weapon and a weapon. So you can have start with 2 weapons or a shield and a weapon. These are some extra settings. So, Fashion Souls makes it to where armor sets are not kept together during shuffling, and you will need to mix and match armor. This leads to some cool combinations, as you saw in my introduction. Now, this is my favorite setting for the randomizer. It's called Laundromat Mix-Up. NPCs, with it checked off, NPCs will just wear their normal sets of armor. But when you turn it on, NPCs have a random set of armor. And I will show you an example of a few NPCs in my game with this setting turned on. I think it's pretty cool. As for these two, I've never actually used these two options because I feel like they break progression of the game. They are called Senile Guinevere and Senile Primordial Serpents. Senile Guinevere makes it to where the Lord Vessel is put into the item pool to be shuffled, meaning you can find the Lord Vessel anywhere in the game, which means you can make the game a lot easier for yourself or a lot harder. I think that takes some fun out of the randomizer because getting the Lord Vessel is always such a big goal when starting a randomizer, and if you happen to find it in the Undead Burg, then you can just fast travel wherever you like, and Frampt will be awake right away. It kind of defeats the purpose of going to Anor Londo as a whole. As for Senile Primordial Serpents, this makes it to where the Lord Shards from Bed of Chaos, the Four Kings, Seath Scaleless, and Gravelord Nito are in the shuffled item pool, meaning that you can find the soul shards anywhere in the game instead of you get them from beating the boss, which I think is also kind of lame because, you know, what's the point of fighting those bosses if you don't get their soul shards to beat the game? So, after you have all of the settings that you picked, all you have to do is scramble items and export to game param. Now you can also get a seed from your friend if you want to have the same items as your friend and race them. So all you would have to do to get a seed is go into your random seed info, and copy the seed and paste it into the bar and then scramble items. I'm not going to do that because that's my current seed. Once your settings are chosen, all you have to do is hit scramble items and export to game param. Alright, it's done that, and it's also produced us a new seed on the top of our thing. Once you're done with that, just hit quit, and you should be good to go. Alright, our next step is to use the enemy randomizer. Go ahead and click that executable. This will show up on your first time using the enemy randomizer. It'll take a lot longer than what it just did for me setting it up for the first time. Especially on the remastered version, it'll take quite a long time. But just let it do its thing, and eventually this menu will pop up. So, for this menu, you have plenty of different options. First one, we'll start with replace bosses. So you have the option to replace bosses only with bosses, with normal enemies, or with bosses or normal enemies. You also have the option to not replace enemies, but if you're doing a randomizer, why wouldn't you replace your bosses? Anyways, so obviously this replaces bosses only with bosses. You can have them only with normal enemies, which is completely boring and weird, I think. And then with bosses or normal enemies. I mean, I guess maybe. I always stick with only with bosses just because, you know, a boss is supposed to be a boss. But at the end of the day, this is your run. Configure it however you want to do it and what you're comfortable with. Our next option is you can replace normal enemies. So you obviously have the option to not replace it. You can replace them only with bosses, which is madness. You can do it with only normal enemies, or with bosses or normal enemies. So you'll have a chance where normal enemies are bosses, which I think is really fun and zany. Our next option is replace NPCs. I always have this put on as do not replace because I've run into problems with it in the past. It works most of the time, but it breaks a few bonfires in the game because it thinks that there's enemies nearby when it's actually just NPCs. So, for example, the First Lady bonfire, the Sister of Chaos bonfire gets broken, and so does Vamos' bonfire in the catacombs, which are two pretty good bonfires that I like to use throughout the game. But if you don't care that much about them, you can go ahead. Note that if they do get replaced, it does ruin our previous setting laundromat mix-up. Our next list of choices are the mode. So you can choose difficulty curve plus easy asylum, random with difficulty curve, fully random plus easy asylum, and fully random. Difficulty curve is just like it sounds. It means that the beginning of the game is going to be easier than the later part of the game, and it has easy asylum. Easy asylum just gives us a select pool of enemies that can be put into the asylum, making it easier to get into the actual game. So there's like tree enemies from Darkroot or mushrooms, and only Capra Demon, Gargoyle, or Taurus Demon can replace the Asylum Demon. I would recommend fully random, just so any enemy can spawn anywhere in the game, and then you can also have easy asylum turned on. I would recommend this for your first run, just because it's nice and simple, and you'll get right into the action, and you won't have to worry about trying to escape the asylum. Recently, I have started to do fully random runs, and my most recent run actually had Gwen as the asylum demon, which was a challenge to say the least. So we're going to go ahead and pick fully random and easy asylum for this video. Our next choice is enemy placement. This dictates where enemies are placed. If you hit anywhere, any enemy can be placed anywhere, even if they don't fit. So if they don't fit, they can block areas, or they can just fall off the map and give you free souls. Now, personally, I don't like that because I feel like it cheapens the experience. So I always do only where they fit. You can also break some NPCs sometimes with anywhere. Now, it is funny, but it does, break NPCs. So that's why there's this option, anywhere except when replacing NPCs. I don't know. You just play around with this option. It's mostly personal preference for me on this one and how you like to play. So that is it for the main screen, the main replacement options. There are two other tabs, other options, and even more options, which I will go into now. So you have the option to replace mimics or do not replace mimics. It's pretty self-explanatory. If you replace mimics, there'll be a random enemy, and you'll get the item after you kill that enemy. If you don't replace, it'll just be a mimic. You can choose to replace the second gargoyle or not. So you can have two bosses on the rooftop. So, for instance, before I've had Pinwheel and Artorias as the gargoyles, or I've had Seath and Priscilla as the gargoyles. It's pretty fun, but it can also be pretty challenging, so this is up to you. T-posing enemies just makes it to where that when you go into new areas, sometimes enemies will be T-posing and frozen. If you don't like that, you can just disable it, but sometimes it's pretty hard to get through an area without enemies T-posing, in my personal opinion. Prevent replacement with the same enemy. Enemies are not allowed to be replaced with this same enemy. So a hollow can't be replaced with another hollow. If you enable this, this just makes it to where, you're not going to see enemies that are usually in that area. It makes it impossible. Type replacement, I'm not too sure what this one does, to be honest. I usually just leave it alone because it's off by default. Sometimes this mod can get kind of unstable when you tweak too many things, so I always just leave it off. And the next one is Pinwheel Chaos. So this makes it to where Pinwheel, the main boss, is not replaced, but its clones are. So, and the clones have normal HP instead of being a one-hit kill. It makes it pretty unfair when Pinwheel starts summoning clones. You'll have like You can have like Manus or a Gargoyle and stuff. I don't recommend this because it's pretty unfair and can crash your game and make it lag and whatnot. So I recommend keeping this off, but if you want to play around with it, go ahead. But once you commit to a run and have it on, you cannot turn it off. So be warned. Next one's pretty simple. This just lowers the Gwen spawn rate in the game, making it to where you don't see Gwen as often because Gwen is annoying because he tracks you from all over the map. No matter where you're at, he will always be aggro to you with those noisy footsteps and that blinding light. And then this one is just try for unique bosses. So trying to avoid fighting multiple types of the same boss in the run. Like, for instance, my last run, the theme of the run was Ornstein because Ornstein was absolutely everywhere. From normal enemies to bosses, he was just everywhere. You turn that on, the game will try for unique bosses so you don't see so many of the same bosses all over the place. And that's it for the other options. There's a third tab, which these ones don't matter as much, but I'm still going to go over them. So, bosses replacing normals respawning. So what this means is, with this enabled, when you kill a boss that replaces a normal enemy, it acts like a normal enemy, meaning it will respawn. With it disabled, that boss will be permanently dead, and every time you rest, it does not respawn. So it can make the game easier and make some areas more habitable. I've always just had it enabled because I think it's more fun that way. But like I said, this is your run. Do what you are comfortable with. Do what you will have the most fun with. This setting enables to where hostile NPCs such as the Undead Merchant, Andre the Giant, Goth the Archer, all those guys, their hostile states are put into the enemy pool and can show up randomly as enemies, which is pretty funny. I always just keep it disabled. I honestly forget about it. But it is fun if you have it enabled. This one is actually the most important on the even more options page. Spawning mosquito replacement. With this enabled, the respawning mosquitoes in Blighttown are replaced. Meaning if they're like a Four King or an Ornstein, those bosses, even if you kill them, they're going to keep coming back at Blighttown over and over and over, no matter what you do. With it disabled, they will just be normal mosquitoes, run-of-the-mill Blighttown mosquitoes just coming after you periodically. I've had this disabled before and it makes runs easier, but with this enabled, it just makes it so funny sometimes, It's hard to tell what enemies are mosquitoes, but, it's pretty fun. So once you're done, you have all the options you would like. I'm also going to delete this seed. I will show you how to get your seeds here in a second. All you need to do is hit randomize. I'm going to do this bar in this top corner, and it's just telling you what it's randomizing. Now it's done. The enemy replacement reference is saved into the enemy replacement data folder that you brought over from the zip file. You can go ahead and close this now, and I will show you where you can get your seed if you want to share it with your friends. Just go to last config text. Oh, usually it's here. Let's see here. I will add a part into the video to show you where to find your seed. Alright, so I forgot to tell you guys where to find your enemy replacement seed. So all you have to do, go into the enemy randomizer data, find the logs file, click on it, find the most recent one, click on it, should open up a notepad. Your seed should be text config. Weird. There we go. It should be this. Should be these numbers. Just copy and paste these numbers. Make sure you all have the same settings so nothing gets messed up. That goes for the item randomizer as well. And once you do that, you should be good to go. Alright, without further ado, let's get in game and see if it worked. Alright, now that we're in game, I would recommend that you start your game in offline mode. For a couple of reasons. You don't want to get invaded, obviously, with random enemies coming after you. But also, you could potentially get banned from online services if you ever want to do a normal playthrough again. Because you're using a mod, they could detect it as using a cheat, and you could get banned from using the online services. So, just to be on the safe side, start the game in offline mode. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and make a new character. Now, to see if the item randomizer worked, you just hop right in, and as you can see, it worked. Our warrior class starts with the crystal straight sword and the grass crest shield. And you just go through and pick the one that you like the best. Let's see, which one am I going to pick? Some of these can be pretty silly. I think I'm going to go ahead and take the wanderer. That's just, drip. I would recommend taking the master key just so you don't soft lock yourself. And then we're just going to name this character Dongle. And with that, we can start the game. So we know the enemy randomizer, or the item randomizer works, but to check if the enemy randomizer thing works, we will have to check one thing. So we go ahead and hit accept, start the game. You can watch the cutscene if you want. I'm going to go ahead and skip it. I've seen it 1,000 times. So, we will tell if it's working. Okay, yep. One of the best parts about the enemy randomizer is that it puts the enemies that are replacing him in the cutscene, so things can get pretty silly. So, we're in game. We got our new armor, our new set, and our enemies are replaced. As you can see, there's a hollow, and our stray demon is a gargoyle. So, you've made it this far in the video. You should have a fully randomized seed. So, now I'm going to go over a few tips that can help you survive in a randomized Lord Ram. Right, tip number 1. Look at all merchants in the game. Their item pools randomized as well, so they can sell anything. From armor to weapons, to key items, to cool rings. Just check whatever they have. All of this. Look, Soul of Man is for 200 souls. 10 crystallization catalysts, all kinds of arrows and armor. Make sure to check all merchants, just so you can give yourself a leg up. And tip number 2, don't feel like you need to follow the main path of the game. That's the beauty of Dark Souls, that you can go anywhere from the beginning. You don't have to go straight to the Undead Burg. You can go to the Catacombs. You can go to the Valley of Drakes with the Master Key. You can go to Blighttown. You can go to Darkroot Basin through Valley of the Drakes. You can explore New Londo Ruins. The choices are pretty limitless at the beginning of the game, and sometimes you need to go places that you normally wouldn't go to first to get items and get stronger, because I'm going to be honest, most of the time the Undead Burg is an absolute mess and a hellhole to get through. So I would recommend going through New Londo or something like that. For my third tip, I would recommend trying new things. You're going to pick up a lot of items throughout your playthrough, and I would recommend to experiment, to find a new favorite weapon. Try something new. I mean, this whole experience is going to be random and wacky. Why not try some random and wacky items to go with it? Try the Guardian Tail. Use a crossbow. Try sorcery or miracles or something that you've never done before. Just have fun. There's been so many times where I wanted to find a specific weapon doing a randomizer run, and then I stumble upon something and it becomes one of my new favorite weapons. For instance, Priscilla's dagger. I had it in my last run and I thought nothing of it at first, but then I started using it and it became one of my favorite weapons very quickly. It's quick, can do tons of damage, and has the highest bleed in the game. It's an awesome weapon, and I wouldn't have known it if I hadn't tried new weapons in this randomizer. And my final tip for you randomized undead is to just have fun. This should be a new and fun experience to bring some of the magic back to Dark Souls when you first played it. That's what happened to me, and hopefully it happens to you too. Anyways, This has been Dongle. I hope you enjoyed. If you like the Dark Souls content, leave a comment below and let me know. And until next time, see ya!